My name is James Michael Lafferty. If you look on your table, there's a box of tissues, which you didn't even notice. That is my product, Fine Tissues. I'm the CEO of Fine Hygienic Holding. So what do I do for a living? I wipe your nose and I wipe your bum. That's what I do for a living. But I didn't always do that. I started my career as an Olympic coach of the U.S. junior national team in track and field. I'm a physiologist by training, and my corporate career started at Procter & Gamble as a corporate fitness trainer, which means I really trained executives how to lose weight and how to stay fit. Now, all of you have had lunch. A lot of you are on your phones. A lot of you are not engaged. Do you know why you fall asleep after lunch? What happens in your body that makes you fall asleep after lunch? The blood goes to the digestive tract to digest food, and it leaves the extremities, and you get tired and fatigued. So, one of the key things to get your energy back is to engage your core and your extremities. So, will everybody stand up, please? Stand up. Come on, you're young. Be young. You got the rest of your life to be old. Be young. Okay, stand up. All right, the center of gravity of the human body is right here, the core. A lot of problems start here. Back pain starts here. Stiffness and tightness starts here. Inability to sleep starts here. So, interlace your fingers like this. Push your hand out in front. Now I want you to go overhead, push on the ceiling. Push the ceiling back up into the sky. Stretch. Feel that stretch, that beautiful stretch in your abdominal area. Now we're going to go to the right. Nice and easy. Go to the right. Okay, some of you are going to go back to school on right and left. Okay, right push. Feel that beautiful stretch out here. Come up to the center. Go to the left. Push. Push out. Come back up center. Push overhead. And now gently, we're going to look back and bend a little bit at the lumbar, your lower back. And bring your arms down. Now put your phone down. Let's have some fun. All right, thank you. All right, we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is the concept of going from being a winner to a champion. Now you hear that. If you've heard this from me before, I apologize. We're going to have a very short session on this. Many people think it's the same thing. A winner and a champion is the same thing. It's not. They're completely different. And in the next 20 minutes, I hope you'll agree with me. So to get started, all of the athletes I'm going to talk about today are athletes that I know, or I coach, or I work with. So the first athlete we're going to talk about who sets the stage is called Nadia Comaneci. Does anyone know who Nadia Comaneci is? Yes, sir. Who is Nadia? Famous gymnast, absolutely correct, from Romania. Now, what made her famous is the way gymnastics used to be done in the Olympics is they would judge your routine on a scale of 0 to 10. Now, nobody gets a 10. They get 9.9. If you get a 9.9, you win everything. The scoreboards were even set up to only go to 9.99 because nobody can be perfect. She's the first person in gymnastics history to get a perfect 10. It all started on the uneven parallel bars in the Montreal Olympics in 1976. She's widely renowned as the greatest gymnast of all time. Let's go back to 76 and look at this famous routine that got her the perfect 10, that when it came up on the scoreboard, it said 1.0. Nadia came and spoke to one of my teams at Procter & Gamble. And one of my people asked her a question, and the answer to that question changed the rest of my life. And I hope it will have an impact on you. The person raised her hand and said, everybody who goes to the Olympic Games is great. Why did you win 5 gold medals and somebody else win 0? What's the difference between you and them? Nadia's answer changed the way I looked at the world. She said, I'll tell you why. There's only 3 people in the world. There's only 3 kinds of people in a company. There's only 3 kinds of people walking the streets of Karachi right now. 3 kinds of people in a gymnastics gym. The coach comes up to us and he says, I want you to do 10 repetitions on each one of the apparatus. Now, the coach is one person. There's 20 gymnasts. So that coach cannot watch all 20. He has to have trust and a belief in the athlete. She said the first kind of people, the coach says, do 10 routines, and they say, I'm not going to do 10 routines. I'm going to do 7, because 7's good enough, and the coach won't know that I cheated on the 3. The coach won't know that I cheated on the 3. And what's wrong with 7? It's better than 0. She said these kind of people are losers in life. They never win. They always cut corners. They never deliver what they say they're going to deliver. And I sit and think, and like every company I've run, I've had a few people like this. They never deliver a number. They always have excuses for everything. They miss every month, and then they've got excuses. They don't win. She said the second group of people says do 10. How many they do? They do exactly 10. She said these people are the winners in life. They win sometimes. They have their moment of glory. And she said, and then there's the third group. Every time he told me to do 10, I never did 10. I did 15. And that's why I won 5 gold medals in the Olympic Games and set the world record. And those people are called the champions in life. They win time after time after time. Now, when she said that, it was just so interesting to me because this whole 3 kinds of people in the world thing. At the time I'm working for Procter & Gamble, they have a rating system for performance. You know how many levels there were of rating? 3. Outstanding, decent, unsatisfactory. I go to Coca-Cola. You know how many levels of rating they had? 3. Outstanding, decent, unsatisfactory. I go to British American Tobacco. All these big Fortune 100 companies. How many levels of performance does BAT recognize? 3. Outstanding, decent, unsatisfactory. Now I'm at Fine Hygienic Holding. How many levels do we have? 3. Outstanding, decent, unsatisfactory. That's it. And she's saying the same thing. There's only 3 kinds of people out there. People that over-deliver, people that deliver, and people who always under-deliver. You got to decide what you want to be. Because this is about choice. It's not about genetics. This is about choice. So, what's the difference between a winner and a champion? Winner wins occasionally. When they grow 2%, 3%, 4%. And they have their moment in the sun. They have their moment of greatness. Like everybody says, you're amazing. But it's very fleeting. It's fleeting. The champion wins time after time after time after time. When they grow big. Think about any sport. Think about tennis. There's people like Andy Roddick, who played for my country, the U.S. He won one time the U.S. Open. But Rafael Nadal won 22 times the gold, one of the Grand Slams. This is the difference between a winner and a champion. Consistency over and over again. Now, if you look at how they do their work, there was a study done in the late 80s. When I read the study, it had a big impact on me because it was about sports teams and about sports individuals, but it could be applied to anything in life. Because the sports world, which I'm still involved in, still coaching the Philippine Olympic team, the Brazil Olympic team in track and field on the side. Certainly, sports can learn from business in the private sector. But we in the private sector can learn from anyone who has achieved greatness in their life, whether it's in the arts, whether it's in ballet, it is in music, whether it is in sports. I can learn from someone who has gone to the top of their profession. And that's the purpose of here for the next 15, 20 minutes, is we're going to learn from some of the greatest ever in sports that can be applied to the private sector, to your personal life, and to the teams that you coach. So, there are 5 principles, but for time purposes, we're only going to do 3. We're going to do 1, 3, and 5. So, 2 and 4, If you want to know what it is, you'll have to call me or send me an email, and I'll answer your question. But principle number 1, what happens? Everything in life has a game. You want to, like my business, let's take the tissue business. What's the game to win in tissues? Have a decent product, price it right, do nice packaging, put it in store, put it in imtiaz, put advertising on Pakistan TV, and you kind of can build a business. That's the game. Now, every single one of you in this room, whatever your job is, there's a game. How do you play the game that you're in? The winners play the game pretty well, but the champion goes way beyond that. They innovate and they change the entire game to their competitive advantage, and the old game goes away. We've seen this in our life. I'll ask you a question. Who in this room has a BlackBerry? Who's got a BlackBerry? One. 10 years ago, it would have been the whole room. They owned the whole thing. And now even people that work for BlackBerry don't have BlackBerries. It went to Samsung. It went to Apple. Why? They changed the game. The game changed. I remember when we called them Crackberry because they were so addictive? Now nobody has it. What happened? Innovation. The champion always innovates. Now, who did I learn this from in the world of sports? This guy, Edwin Moses. He's an old friend of mine. This is Edwin and I at actually the World Cup in football in South Africa in 2010. Who knows who Edwin Moses is? This will really date you because this shows how old I am and everything. Who knows who Edwin Moses is? Yes, sir. He was a runner. 400-meter hurdles was his race. His streak of victories is considered the greatest streak in the history of sports. He didn't lose a race for 10 years. Now, what did he do? This guy was an engineer in mechanical engineering from Morehouse College in the U.S. He applied engineering principles to his sport, and he made one little change to the sport. Remember, innovation is not always a big deal. It can be a little deal on something in your life. Let's go to principle number 3. When the winners win, they party. They put their feet up. They say, I made it. I'm a winner. They live off the past. Now, I'm 60 years old. I'm 60 years old. People ask me all the time, why do 60-year-old executives get fired all of a sudden? They have this great career and they get fired. It's not age discrimination. You want to know why 60-year-olds get fired? I'll tell you why. They get fired because they forget this principle. They live off the past. And they say, when I was 45, I was the top sales executive in the whole world. Yeah, and you got paid for it. Nobody cares what you did at 45. What are you doing today? Every time I've had to fire a senior executive, it's the same thing. They are living off past glory. Imagine an athlete acting like that. Imagine Imran Khan saying, hey, I won the World Cup in cricket. You got to let me back on the team. I might be 60 or 58, but you got to let me back. We laugh at that, but I see executives do it every day. They live off the past. So what happens to the winner? They win and they go to sleep. The champion never forgets the Sisyphus principle of life. What is the Sisyphus principle? Who is Sisyphus? Here is Sisyphus. Greek mythology. Sisyphus committed a crime. What did the gods do? The gods said, you have to roll this rock up the top of the hill every day. At night, we bring the rock down. Next morning, you got to roll the rock back up. At night, comes back down. Your rest of your life is rolling the same rock up the same hill. Guess what? You don't like to hear this, but you're going to hear it. I'm Sisyphus, and so are you. You got to re-earn it every day. I can't go to my wife and say, hey, when we got married, I was an amazing husband, but now I don't have to be. You got to re-earn it every day. I have to re-earn her love every day. People, if you wake up in the morning, Guys, what is so interesting back there? Please, can we keep it down? Okay. When you get up every morning, if you say, I got to re-earn my pay today, you're going to have an amazing career. But you start thinking you deserve it, and it's automatic because of what you did in the past, you're done. Another way to say the Sisyphus principle is this. Success is never owned. It's rented. And the rent is due every day. Where did I learn this from? The women in the audience, this is a very sad story that you're about to hear about an athlete and what happened to her when she got pregnant. Now, the athlete is Maristela Torres. She's also called the long jump queen of Asia. What has she done? She's won the gold medal 4 times in the Southeast Asia Games, which is like the Olympics for Cambodia, Vietnam, Indonesia, Singapore, Philippines, all the countries in Southeast Asia. She also won the Asian Championships, gold medalist. She holds the Philippines national record, which is not surprising. She won the Philippine title 16 times, and she qualified and went to 3 Olympic Games in a row. 2008 in Beijing, 2012 in London, and 2016 in Rio. Now, what happened to her? Well, she just wanted to be a mother like anyone else. A God-given right. And what happened? The Philippine government and the Philippine Track and Field Association fought and left her without a job. Here's a documentary, it's only a couple minutes long, that was done by Channel News Asia on her story. It's in Tagalog, but there's English subtitles. This is a very sad story with redemption. Here's what happened to somebody who couldn't perform because she was pregnant and what somebody did to her. She went to the Rio, we brought her back. She was heavily overweight. As you could see, I didn't have a ton of equipment because I was doing this on the side, helping her out. So we started her pushing cars. We started with a little small Toyota. At the end, you saw her in the video, she's pushing a Prado for 2 kilometers. Okay, she got really press coverage on this. It made the Wall Street Journal front page, this whole story of how executive adopted an athlete who had been fired and was going to take her back to the Olympic Games. I got a nickname there as the No Rice Coach, which upset everybody because rice does not help athletic performance. Rice is no better than sugar, and I told her you can't have any rice. Now, a lot of people got upset, and they said, oh, you're racist against people who eat rice. And I said, I'm not racist at all, but I am racist. I'm very racist against rice for athletes. So there was a lot of press coverage on it. The first competition in her comeback was the Hong Kong Open. She won the gold medal. There she is with my wife, also her nutritionist, and some of the... Made it to Rio. She was the oldest woman in the Rio Olympics in long jump, track and field, and the only mother. So she was 35 years old at the Olympic Games with a child. She didn't win the gold medal. I'm very proud of her. She was in the top 15 in the world in her profession. And we went back the night before Olympic Village, all the athletes stay. We went back to her room, and that was a shot I took of her in her national uniform the day before. The 6-pack was back, and she was in peak physical condition after being a mother. Okay, this is clearly a message. It doesn't say I love you. It says 5 minutes remaining. Okay, got it. So we're gonna sprint right through this. The last principle number 5 is about how you perceive things, moments in your life that are important. When winners are in an important moment, like the World Cup final in cricket or the Wimbledon final or whatever, they say the following: I'm just so happy to be here. It's such an honor to be here. I don't care what happens tomorrow, but just playing in the World Cup final is good enough for me. These people lose 98% of the time because the champion has a whole different attitude called the sense for the historic. What is the sense for the historic? It's the recognition of the most important moments in your life when failure is not an option. There are times in life you can't fail, ever. Now, I'm not perfect, you're not perfect, but we are capable of moments of perfection. And these are when you have the perfect moment. We can call this clutch performance. We can call it by different titles, but sense for the historic is a recognition that this is one I'm not going to mess up. In this one, I'm going to win. Now, I learned this from my dear old friend Michael Johnson, the U.S. sprinter. He ran the 200 meters, which is half a lap, and the 400 meters, which is a full lap. No man had ever done that before in the Olympics. Certainly no man had ever done it and win. Now, he went to the Olympic Games in '96, and he was very famous for wearing these gold shoes from Nike. Now, you say, that's kind of arrogant. He wears gold shoes, he didn't win the gold medal. And same old story. Last time you're going to hear this from me. He's speaking to my team in Poland. And one of my people said, why did you wear the gold shoes? It's so arrogant. If you lose, the whole world will laugh at you and think you look stupid. His answer shook me to my core. He said, that's the problem with the world. If I lay in bed and worry I'm going to look stupid, does that help me win? Does worrying about looking stupid help me win? No! He said, so I made a decision. I'm going to wear my gold shoes and I'm going to train harder than everybody else and I'm going to win. Failure is not an option. And he said, sometimes in life, plan B sucks. There is no plan B. There's only plan A. There's only plan A. And I thought, how many times have I laid in bed? If I miss a month, I'm going to get fired. How stupid. Worrying about missing the month doesn't help me make the month. So get up and do the month. Don't lay in bed and stress about it. Just do it. It changed the whole rest of my life and my career as a CEO. I never worry about the numbers anymore. I only worry about doing what I have to do to make the number. Because worrying about the number doesn't help you make the number. So, in simple terms, this is how it looks. This is an organogram. Take a look carefully at this. Do you have a problem? If no, don't worry. If yes, then ask yourself, can you do something about it? If you can do something about it, then don't worry. If you can't do anything about it, then don't worry. The conclusion is, don't worry. Focus on what you have to do to win. Now, what happened in those Olympic Games in '96? 2 races, 200 meter, 400 meter, half lap, full lap. Nobody does this combination, so it's a very unique combination. I've known Johnson since the early 1980s when he ran for the U.S. junior national team, which I coached. I coached him, I coached against him. I've seen him lose a lot of races. But the biggest thing in track and field is the Olympics and the World Championships. Everything else is secondary. He won 13 times in the Olympics and the World Championships. You know what his record was in those 13 races? 13 gold medals. He never lost an Olympic race or a World Championship race. That is sense for the historic. Folks, what are the most important things in your life and your job? The ones that make the difference. The ones where you can't miss. Those are the ones you have the sense for the historic for. You can miss on some other stuff, but not on those. That's sense for the historic. The champion gets to the final and says, I may never be here again. I can't count on 4 years from now. Maybe I'll get sick. Maybe I'll break my leg. I got to win now because there may never be a second chance. Bottom line, my advice, this is one amazing country with one super talented population, so much energy and passion. Why do I always come back here every shot I get? Because it's just such an amazing place. Put your gold shoes on. Put your gold shoes on. Take the risk and put it out there. Because I honestly believe that this is the time for this country. Your time is now. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to talk any questions. I apologize for going over. Should I sit or should I go down? Because I don't know if I was banished for being late. Okay. I don't know if you need this or not.
Well, that was inspiring and depressing at the same time. Inspiring because it tells us what all we can do, and depressing because we've never done it. Thank you, I was just joking. All right, so I'm going to invite Michael Kugelman for his address now. He's the director, South Asia Institute, the Wilson Center, which is a Washington-based think tank. He's managed the South Asia portfolio there for 15 years. His analyses have appeared in the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Financial Times, Wall Street Journal, and other major outlets. We're very happy to have Michael here with us. He is here for the Karachi Literature Festival as well, so we're lucky that the timing of the two has coincided. Michael, the podium is all yours.
Well, thank you very much. I have to say that, it's a very hard act to follow what we just heard. So I apologize to you that if my brief comments on geopolitics in South Asia aren't quite as uplifting as what we heard just before, but that was a really tremendous presentation and not the type of thing that I hear at the conferences that I'm usually at, so it was a real treat. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. I am not like most of you. I am not a corporate executive. I'm not an investor. I'm not an Olympic coach. I'm not a distinguished official. But I am a think tanker in Washington, D.C. I was asked to offer some brief comments that can essentially provide a bit of a geopolitical backdrop for the conversations that you all have had for the last 2 days. And I'm sorry I couldn't be here yesterday. I actually just arrived from Washington this morning. But what I'll do in my brief comments is just highlight what I view to be 3 key geopolitical trends in South Asia, in particular how they might impact the types of conversations that you all have been having over the last few days. And these are not uplifting by any means, but I think we have to be realistic about what the region is going through at this moment. So the first key trend that I will identify is what I would describe as sharpening and expanding great and rising power competition. We're seeing geopolitical rivalry play out more vividly and intensely in South Asia at this moment in time for 3 different reasons. There are rivalries between India and China, which you're well aware of, I know. These are 2 longtime strategic rivals, and it's really intensified over the last few years, particularly because of a particularly bloody border clash in 2020, which was the deadliest conflict between India and China since they fought a war back in the 1960s. Since then, they've continued to trade very heavily, but on a strategic level, they've been competing all the more so. China, of course, has been very active in Pakistan and the broader region through its Belt and Road Initiative, infrastructure investments, but other types of investments too. And we've seen India push back more and try to compete with what China is doing. The U.S.-China competition is arguably, in my view, one of the biggest foreign policy stories at the moment. That competition is playing out more in this region as well. What we've seen, in my view, for quite some years is successive administrations in Washington taking a relatively limited view to South Asia, in which the region is looked through 3 separate lenses, one being Afghanistan, where of course a war was fought for a number of years, the other being India, which is a key focus of attention for the US government, and also Pakistan, of course. There's been a Cold War alliance, there is a counterterrorism alliance, and so forth. But what we've seen in more recent years is the US government engaging on high levels with other countries in the region. And we've started to see this US-China competition play out all the more so. Washington is stepping up its efforts in South Asia in order to try to push back against what China is up to in this region. And Nepal is a very interesting case study here. Just a few months ago, the Nepal Parliament ratified a Millennium Challenge Corporation infrastructure grant. It had taken quite some time to ratify. It finally was ratified. The reason why it took a long time to ratify is that the U.S. views this MCC grant as part of its Indo-Pacific policy. And of course, the Indo-Pacific policy is meant to counter China. Nepal, like most countries in this region, is non-aligned. It doesn't want to get caught up in these big, great power rivalries. And so it was hesitant to embrace this new grant, which is associated with the Indo-Pacific policy. The US-Russia rivalry is starting to play out in this region as well. I think we might think of India and its efforts to try to balance its relations with the US and Russia amid the Russian invasion in Ukraine. But I would argue that other countries are starting to see this competition play out as well. Bangladesh, for example. For quite some time, Russia has invested in Bangladesh's nuclear energy industry. So a few weeks ago, there was a Russian ship that went to Bangladesh and was planning to unload parts for a nuclear power plant that it's building in Bangladesh. But the U.S. government had indicated to the Bangladesh government that this Russian ship was sanctioned by the U.S. because of its links to the Russian military. So Bangladesh decided not to let that ship dock. It ended up going to India, where it hoped to unload its parts and transfer them to another ship that was not sanctioned. But India didn't let the ship unload its materials either. So the ship ended up going back to Russia. But it's very interesting how now Bangladesh is getting caught up in these rivalries as well. So this puts countries in this region in a tough spot, because as I said before, most countries in this region are non-aligned. They don't want to pick sides. They don't want to get caught up in these geopolitical power games. But it's getting tougher to do that as the geopolitical competition has picked up. There is perhaps an opportunity here for countries in the region, including Pakistan, given that the U.S. is more present in this, it's trying to be more present more broadly in the region. And it is very keen to look into new infrastructure investments, particularly through the DFC, the International Development Finance Corporation, which is closely associated with the Indo-Pacific policy. So there could be some fresh opportunities for engagement and investment. Second geopolitical trend that I'll highlight in the region is, again, a downer, an expansion of hot borders. There are so many borders in this part of the world that are disputed, that are tense, that are violent at times, and this has grown. Everyone here would know about what's happening on the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. There have been significant tensions between Pakistan and the Taliban since it took over power. The Taliban, like all Afghan governments since the independence of Pakistan, does not recognize the border with Pakistan. So this has caused tensions, and as you all know as well, terrorists based in Afghanistan, the Pakistani Taliban, have staged attacks in Pakistan, and the Taliban in Afghanistan has not done anything to try to curb that group or expel it, other than to offer to host talks between Pakistan and the Pakistani Taliban, and of course those talks didn't work out. So that border is hot. The India-China border is hot. I mentioned before what's going on there. China has seemingly been able to make incursions into India at will. India is not able to push back against that. We don't hear about it as much, but the Pakistan-Iran border experiences periodic cross-border violence as well. One that that no one thinks about enough of is the Bangladesh-Myanmar border. Myanmar, of course, is experiencing significant levels of violence. There have been a number of insurgencies broken out, targeting the military in Myanmar. That violence has occasionally spilled over into Bangladesh. And finally, there's the India-Pakistan border. And it's interesting I bring it up last because, ironically, this may be one of the most stable borders at this moment in time. It's how often would we say that the India-Pakistan border is stable? It's relatively stable now because of a new border truce that was concluded about 2 years ago. And that provides some hope. I know that there's been some discussion about prospects for trying to open up border trade between India and Pakistan, taking advantage of this better period in the relationship. Hasn't happened really for political, diplomatic reasons, but I think that's notable. So all of these border problems militate against better neighborhood relations at a moment when good regional relations have never been more important because of this emergence of these shared global transnational threats, climate change, COVID-19. And I would argue that these troubled relations are worsened by this ugly combination of economic stress, beleaguered governments, in some countries toxic nationalism, that essentially create a political environment where it's simply not advisable politically for countries to reach across the aisle to their rivals and say, let's find a way to get along. Third and finally, and I'll wrap up here, third key geopolitical trend playing out in the region is what I would describe as sub-regionalization. This region has always struggled with connectivity and integration because of bad political relations, struggling with infrastructure that's problematic, and so on. There is a regional organization in South Asia, it's SARC, as you all know, but it's struggled, mainly because of the India-Pakistan problem. SARC functions based on unanimity. Decisions are made based on unanimity. But since India and Pakistan disagree on so much, it's hard for a lot of decisions to be made. And so this regional organization struggles. So as a result, what we've seen in recent years is that India has sought to strengthen trade and connectivity cooperation with members of the BIMSTEC organization, which is essentially South Asia minus Pakistan and Afghanistan, plus some of Southeast Asia. That's left Pakistan to look more to Afghanistan to pursue connectivity projects, especially targeting Central Asia. So there has been some momentum in recent years. We've seen some new electricity sharing arrangements between India, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan and Pakistan have been working with Uzbekistan on a prospective new transnational rail program. But the sub-regionalization is good if it creates some levels of connectivity, but it hampers broader cross-regional trade and connectivity. Again, this is a region where there is not a lot of intra-regional trade. The countries in this region trade more with the outside world than they do with each other. And obviously that there's some possible squandered opportunities for greater economic development and trade and so on. And it's also a wasted opportunity, unfortunately, given that we've seen significant levels of infrastructure investment domestically in so many countries in this region, including Pakistan. So it's how it is, but it is unfortunate. So with that, I will conclude. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you very much, Michael. I'd now like to invite our next speaker, former Chief of Staff, Pakistan Air Force, Air Chief Marshal Sohail Aman. He's a graduate of the King's College London and Harvard Kennedy School. He's regarded as a transformational leader. He was the architect of a campaign against terrorism during his Air Force tenure, which brought peace to Pakistan. His strong focus on academics saw in his tenure in the Air Force 2 medical colleges, 3 engineering universities, the Aviation City, and the Air Power Center of Excellence. He is the recipient of Tamgha Imtiaz, Sitara Imtiaz, Hilal Imtiaz, and Nishana Imtiaz, besides the highest military awards from Turkey and Saudi Arabia. He is the only general in South Asia to have received the U.S. Legion of Merit. With this, I am honored to invite Sir Sohail. Sir, we're excited to hear from you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, good afternoon. What a 3 days marathon, 2 days marathon. And now we're about closing, and there's been complete bombardment, pardon me for the military language, of the ideas, the concept, the disruption, innovation, technology, and so much was all included. Absolutely stunning. I'm very grateful that I've been honored to make one of the closing addresses. I've been part of this journey for 7 years. And I also had the honor of speaking in most of these future summits. But as an elder, when I look back, it's a lot of satisfaction, a lot of gratitude for Nutshell to start this, because the words like disruption, innovation, bringing the technology, leadership, they all started to sound. And when we talk of this time, of the startups, the small business initiatives, and I was very glad to see that those have started to contribute. So great job done. Initiatives, smaller or bigger, have to be taken, and they bring the results. So I think that's on my personal account that I feel very, very satisfied. What comes out of this summit eventually gets into a white paper and goes to all the stakeholders, because there's so much to learn from here, and this should not go waste at all. My 35 years career into public sector and 5 years peeping into the window for the private sector brings me to a very important point. And disruption is not about the majority of the people who are sitting here on the business and technology and industry. It's basically the public sector and the political domain. That is where there's need for disruption, to understand what the technology can bring. And actually technology is just about a vehicle to ultimately get the objectives done. I think what we'll do is that because Pakistan was talked about a lot, so before I go on to preparing for disruption, let me get into a few of the major domains on Pakistan, and I'll come back on the smaller areas. But nevertheless, the smaller areas will have much bigger impact, and that will be surprising to see. But we're all the same country, whether we sit in the public sector or whether we are in the private sector. A good handshake is what is really required to make the ultimate progress. The bureaucratic delays have to be addressed so that the business gets a free hand of employing the concepts, do the disruption, and that is where the government and the public sector support is required. And I say that with a lot of certainty because looking at the two and the struggle, and that's what actually one of the basic mandates of the nutshell is to make that happen. On Pakistan, let's not talk about the potentials because potentials are too many, and during my talk we'll just say a few of them. But actually, how many of those potential do you utilize? Now that's what really converts into money, that converts into looking after your people, and that is something that we really need to know. Yes, we've had problems. But then look at this country's resilience. Did we ask the Soviets to come and invade invade Afghanistan in 1979? Were we responsible for 9/11 and what happened then on in Afghanistan? Let's not forget, and I'll come to the problems. It is hardcore statistics that Pakistan lost $120 billion, and that's a State Bank figure, in the 10 years of the war against terrorism. Was it our fault? We decided to side by what we think was right, and that was right. We lost 60,000 civilians, and I think salute to all of them. Those were poor, and they were trying to live their lives, and they got into bomb blasts, taking the right side. But then that's past, and that's not an excuse. We went into the wrong employment as far as the energy sector was concerned, and we got into areas policy reversals all along, the political instability, and we need to get on with it. And I believe, inshallah, I'll be very glad to hear that very soon you'll have a good news as far as the political stability is coming, inshallah. All right. This was not a summit. This was at a seminar. To me, it's a turning point. To me, it's a point where for 2 days we sat down and we peeped through the window where the world is actually moving. Where and how do they see the future, whether it is the meta-universe, whether it is the artificial intelligence, where is the world moving? And we have seen that. And we've had a good time to reflect on ourselves that what we are doing and what can be done. And let me assure you, the answers are not difficult. And I'm not going to make oversimplistic situation. I'm an over-optimist man, but will make some very, very smart and quick conclusions. We'll have to get out of the personal interests and the cartels and those agendas. We've been saying Pakistan first, but when Pakistan first comes in, we have to make that sacrifice which needs to be done. Look at the divide between the haves and the have-nots. The richer have been getting richer and the poor have been getting poorer. Now that divide has to be filled in the right manner. Otherwise, you divide the society. I'm really not talking, we talked a lot on the solutions, but look at, did we make the CPEC motorways for the cars to run? You got such a beautiful infrastructure starting from right from the north up to the ports. You developed the ports. Were they done for running the cars? No. Look at the Central Asian republics, the way it is located. You're the natural path. And what is Ukraine war done to the whole thing? The 3 passages out from the Central Asian republics, do you realize that those are all stopped? And the only one through Iran takes twice the time. Your infrastructure on the roads, I've had an opportunity of looking at the video, is 10 times better than Afghanistan and Central Asian republics. You don't use it. What are you doing with the country? But then a good, quick statistic, the trade opportunity and the transit opportunity through the Central Asian republics, we talked of the loan today, the foreign debt, something like $95 billion. you need 9 years to offset this. And if I tell you the problems that we have, you say these are not the issues. You have the infrastructure, you put that kind of money in. Can't we sort out the customs? Can't we get that political resolve that we need to do it? And that's why I said it's a turning point is do it now or do it never. Where we have reached is an alarming situation. It has to be addressed. Look at the agri, and I'm just giving two major strategic examples. A country like Pakistan with 230 million people, can you afford an import bill of $10 billion every year? You got, we call it Kharif Fasal, that's a time period. And you can put the soya bean in and you can get rid of that $5 billion that imported you do, getting the oil from the Malaysia and Indonesia. Why? It needs resolve, it needs practical approach, it has to be done. There's, gentlemen, no two ways about it. And that's what is required and needed from the political stability and, of course, the bureaucracy, making the lives comfortable for the business. I'm very grateful to one of my mentors, and he sits here today, luckily one of our teachers and mentors. In 2000, he gave me a book, and that was about Innovator's Dilemma. And 1997, the book was written by Mr. Clayton, and what he was talking of, either the new market disruption or the low-end disruption. And he made a beautiful figure, and I'll tell you, there's a triangle, and he's talking of the risks which are associated to a disruptor. And that is about opportunity and the risk. On top, you know what it talks about is faith. As a leader, your faith to make sure that it will happen. And whether in the corporate sector, whether in the military, or whether in your ability come from the faith. And I am reminded of an American blind mountaineer, climbed the Mount Everest twice. And he was asked, you're at 29,000 feet, are you not scared? And he said, we are all blind. You put our hand out here to hold this in faith, and you get it. And he used to be climbing behind another man who would tell him the hook is at 1 o'clock. And he would put his hand there, and he always managed it. That's the faith that we need to take with it. It's not about money. It's about the purpose that you derive in the business, and that will take you somewhere. We've talked about globe. 230 million people means something. There is a global responsibility that we have. How are we contributing to the world? We talked of the gender. Look at the human resource that you have. I mean, you're between 13 to 33, you've got 63% of your population there. If you don't train them well, you don't make them good for your industry, and you don't export them, this is your moral and social responsibility to give to the world. I mean, this is the least, and I think I'm talking of very, very simple areas. As a leader, and now I'm really addressing the corporate leaders here, your ability to spot the disruption in a scenario, and you can develop it, is the key that as a leader you have that vision. You're not supposed to be master on the technology, on the AI and metaverse, anything, but you should know that this helps. You should understand the basic dynamics, and that is the vehicle that you drive. If you don't do it, your ambitions will not come true. You need to have a team which understands that this is the vehicle that we are going to board, and your ability to motivate them, give them that faith, and that carries on with the whole thing. Do you realize, where's the technology? A vehicle only. It's all about human. It's all about empathy. It's all about your people. And I think COVID times were the very good times which taught us it was not the time for layoffs. It was the time to build the relationships. A caution here, plan B and Cs, although he said that there are no plan Bs and Cs. The natural calamities, the climate change, expected. The war in Ukraine was not expected. These all things will come in, and your plan Bs and Cs are ready. Must adopt a helicopter approach. You're not supposed to be a manager to manage this. Do this, let your team get on, and then monitor it from outside. This will enable you to find out the plan Bs and Cs and look at how will you tailor to the success. On the gender, we had a great discussion, and let me tell you, doing a project in the rural areas of Pakistan, Sawabi. And whenever we've gone there, the men are asking for the children to be employed as drivers, as T-boys. And when we went to get the teachers, the lady teachers, none of those women are. They said, we want to educate our children here. And we want to really contribute, and we want them to become something big. I think when you invest in women, when you educate them, you educate complete families, and you need to empower them. That's important. Entrepreneurs are your heroes. And we all understand it's not about the jobs, about giving the jobs. And I'll talk about this a little more. But has the government, has somebody really put the entrepreneurs as the top leaders on a 14th August or 23rd March? They're the ones who will really produce money for you. They're the ones who will bring you respect. Please remember, disruption now is not an option. It's a compulsion, and it's about spending less money, bringing out-of-the-box solutions, and then getting into bigger objectives. If you remember ChatGPT, we just started to talk about it. It had a commitment of $10 billion. They spent $1 billion. And in 2 months, look at these figures. The company's worth is $29 billion. But that's the kind of innovation that you need to really articulate. Netflix and the Blockbusters story, we all know Blockbusters didn't believe it's going to happen. And today the Blockbusters are completely blocked and bankrupt. And look, and that's the innovation that we're talking about. Now, a few very quick, nice stories about, look at Nadra the way it has, and that's our stories I'm talking about. You need to give a pat on the back and ease them. I have seen these startups, and I've seen these small businesses being challenged everywhere in the government circle and in the public sector areas. It's our duty to ease them off. It's the cost of the repetition that I would say. HPL does a beautiful interface going down to the lowest level of farmers. It saves you $10 billion a year. For goddamn, for what reason can we just not support it? And why not? It's there. The Unity Food, we just heard Farokh this morning, he did talk about it. They've already seen a 20% increase. I mean, India is about twice our value on the yields. I'm talking average. The China is about 3 times. And our potential is high. And I did talk of the soya bean. Central Asian republics I did talk of. But look at a small organization like TCS. Within 3 months of taking the initiative, they've cleared all the channels. There are trucks coming down from here. But that's scarce. That's not even 0.1% of what is actually kept out there. It has to be tapped. There are no two ways about it. We had the Willie talk about Zindagi program here of one of banks. I happened to be on the board at that time. And that's a very important lesson there. In the first board meeting, McKinsey came in. It's a $10 million bill for making the bank digital. And we had to believe we can do it ourselves. They promised 30,000 customers in 1 year. Around 15 boys and girls in a room, incubation center. 1.5 years. Today, the figure is 1 million customers, and the bank is completely digitalized. Wow. Now, that's the indigenous resource that you have to have confidence, faith, and you have to go on with it. I'll wrap it up by 2 more examples. Does anybody know about Rashidabad? Rashidabad. All right. Say 5% of the hall. Rashidabad is a small town it's a philanthropic town. And now I'm giving example of women empowerment and the children education. Now those are the centers that we need to support and make sure that Tando Alayar is a complete town where there is education, 3,000 children studying, orphans, widows, hospitals, school. the floods, they lost their houses. Ladies and gentlemen, can you believe that the house which has only one room, which is also destroyed, the children in the school, they all have their tabs, they're linked up to the incubation center. In the grade 5, they're learning entrepreneurship. Now that's the model that we need to bring out into our rural areas. Naeem Zimedar mentioned this yesterday, and I'm forced to talk about it, and that's the Air Force story. We very badly damaged 2 of the SAB aircraft from terrorist attacks. We looked at it, and $387 million was the bill by the SAB, and the biggest problem was that we didn't have a certification agency. So we went on it. We said we'll do it ourselves. Only one PhD scholar working on it with 3 boys team. 1 year down the line, Pakistan became the 5th aviation certification agency of the world. Wow. That's the kind of commitment that you get it. We repaired ourselves. The total cost was less than $25 million. Both aeroplanes were flying, and they're doing a good job. And incidentally, one of those aeroplanes was controlling the Pulwama operation. So that's the kind of indigenization that you do. But honestly, it was not the money. It was the trust in the people that you find that they will work, they'll muster the technology, and they will deliver it to you. So I usually call it a SAB to aviation city. And then, of course, then sky was the limit. We were making our own weapons, the precision weapons, and everything. So you need to get the core with you, the intelligentsia. Empower them, give them environment, facilitate them, and they'll deliver to you. That's the spirit of disruption. Nobody will come to help us. We don't need anybody's help. We will do it ourselves. And inshallah, we can do it. But these small initiatives, bits and bits, katra katra karke, hum isko darya bana lenge. And it's all doable. There's nothing which I've talked is Greek. The only thing you need, patronage by the government, policy continuation. And last but not the least, we're usually talking about a lot of difficulties. कल एक शेर पढ़ा गया था, उसके जवाब में शिकवा जुल्मत से कहीं बेहतर था, शिकवा जुल्मत से कहीं बेहतर था अपने हिस्से की एक शम्मा जलाते जाते. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Sohail Saab. And I would be, I think it would not even be, I'm not even qualified to introduce Senator Dr. Musadik Malik. Sir, I will not say anything about you. Everybody knows who you are. We'd like to hear from you now about how we are preparing for disruption moving forward from this point. Please.
Thank you very much. It's a difficult topic, especially if I don't use Star Trek examples, and I've been forbidden to do so. So honestly, I don't know what to say. And most of what I wanted to say, I've already said it at this forum many times. So I've been asked to twist it and repackage it and say it in a different manner. So I'll try. Let's see if it works. I think it's very difficult to talk about future at a future summit and the disruptions that are ahead of us without thinking about the past. And if I ask you, can you imagine a world without Facebook and Twitter and cell phones and Uber and Google and Instagram? Can you imagine that? And do you realize that this was all just about 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago? And I don't see a lot of very young people, so don't pretend. It's not like you didn't exist before that. But it's so hard when disruptions come and hit you. It is so hard to imagine a world when these disruptions, positive or negative, were not in place. I tell my children that we used to have those clunky black telephones in which you dialed and then you waited for that thing to come back. And I told them that there weren't any cell phones. And my children are in their 20s. The oldest is 25, 26. And they can't imagine that world. They laugh at me. They really think that there was never a time when there were no cell phones. This is how powerful disruptions are. And embedded in this is the power of imagination, to imagine what is not. And that is pretty much what has driven this world. So we can't imagine what the world was like, although we were all a part of it. And it's hard to connect with that world in which we all lived. So now, when I start to look up rather than over my shoulders and ask, what would it be like? It's equally impossible to fathom. It's hard to know what would it mean when the lab experiments that are taking place right now, in which tapeworms are living 5 times their natural age, what would happen when that translates into human life? This is already happening. I'm not talking about something that will happen, may happen. What is going to be the impact of human genome, which was mapped in the 1990s? It took over a decade and about a couple of $1 billion to map the first human genome. And now it takes $100 and 1 day. And very soon it would be an app on your telephone, and you'd put your finger, thumb, or a hair or something, or maybe kiss it, and your entire genome would be mapped out in real time. And what would happen then? What would happen to illness? What would happen to illness when you'd be able to program yourself? When you'd be able to do genetic programming? What would happen? What would happen? They're already producing pancreatic cells in the Petri dish to combat type 1 and type 2 diabetes. It's already happening. It's going to be in the marketplace in 4 to 5 years. So really, it's difficult to fathom, it's difficult to imagine the world in which we used to live. We all lived. It's even more to imagine a world that is ahead of us. I mean, we are right now in the process of printing. We actually are in the process of printing the fuselage for air travel. This used to be, I don't know how many tons, 20, 100-ton kind of fuselage things that used to be thrown down. Now, in that spaceship, you can actually do the 3D printing of the fuselage. So, what does that mean? How easy or difficult would it be to go for space travels? And they're already thinking about putting industrial plants, space industrial plants, taking the production that takes place on the Earth to the space. Naturally clean environment, naturally clean, zero dust. Imagine what would happen to the efficiencies of the products that we are going to produce. And what we're talking about right now, which is not the future, is hydrogen for energy. We are already talking about green urea or fertilizers. We're already talking about renewables. Renewables are now the past. What would happen when the surface that you have in front of your house becomes the storage, with the material science kind of developments that are taking place? Very difficult to imagine, very difficult to imagine robots, even more difficult to imagine cyborgs, the engineered human beings. You go in, you play around with the genetic material, and all of the stuff that we were talking about, in terms of motivation and not taking no for an answer, you can program it. Then I wonder, what would be the 3 types of people when all of us would be one type? Now that would be a difficult world. Amongst only champions left in the world, who would be the champion? Very difficult to imagine. Now, how all would this happen? I mean, there's some very clear answers and some not so clear answers. The clear answers are through some sciences, which are already the platforms for the evolution. Nanotechnology, biotechnology, cognitive or artificial intelligence technologies, information technologies, these are the bedrocks of all of the things that I'm talking about. So these platforms are in place. So what can go wrong? What can go wrong with what appears now to be a natural trajectory? I think what can go wrong is what went wrong with globalization. Globalization was a natural trajectory. And as my friend Michael was just telling you about this regionalization, where did this regionalization come from? It was all smooth. We were all in the 1990s, 70s, 80s, 90s talking about the merits of globalization and how the world would change and how there'd be no poor left and how we would be all interwoven into one global fabric. What happened to the fabric? How did it get torn? How were we left out? We were just about told a few years ago that coal was bad, and then coal became good. And Germany opened up coal mines. And then the coal plants were opened up in Europe. So what happened to the dirty coal? And how were we left out? Why was our coal black and some other coal white? You know what happened? The geopolitics changed. Technology stayed the same. Climate stayed the same. The burden of climate, everything stayed the same. The geopolitical plates shifted. And all of a sudden, it was a different world. And all of a sudden, all of those agents who were telling us that we are all interwoven into one global fabric told us that we are not even a patch on that fabric. And if you go back to the language that was spoken about globalization, you know what happened? It created about a group of 5 billion vagabonds who were living at the periphery or in the periphery of the world who were just left out of this globalization fabric. This disparity between the haves and the have-nots, that is what can go wrong with everything that I've mentioned. And when that happens, what would happen? What is happening right now? Populism. We'd have these people who would come and sell hate. I mean, Michael is here, so I wouldn't name any presidents, but you'd have presidents and prime ministers like that. They pop out of populism, and that populism is embedded in the lopsidedness of those who have it and those who don't. And technology doesn't take care of it. Everything that I've mentioned, the genome, the genetics, the biotech, the nanotech, the cognos, it doesn't take care of 5 billion poor people who are living in the periphery, as if they were vagabonds. And the world needed to build walls around itself to make sure that these vagabonds, these stray people, stay out of this beautiful global fabric. That disruption is what can go wrong moving forward. And that's what I'm worried about. The financial meltdown of the West popped the president that I would not name. The COVID crisis popped the whole new tension in geopolitics. Who would have the vaccine and therefore who would not have the vaccine? Who decided that? What happened to us? Or what happened to the usness? Why were 4 billion people left out and 200 or 300 million units of doses were donated to them? They were less human. The kids and parents were less parents and kids. What happened? So these are the kinds of things that I fear the most about. I don't fear the natural trajectory that I've laid out for you. That is going to happen. That is bound to happen. What I worry about is what we cannot see along this trajectory. What I worry about is the lopsidedness of science and where it rests and where the money is available for its creation as well as for its commercialization. And what would happen to the rest? When everyone is a champion, but the champions are only engineered in the Western world, what would happen to the South that Michael studies all the time? What would he say about commoners who are not champions, the category 3 people? We'd be able to engineer category 3 and category 2 and category 1 people. That is what I'm worried about. That is the disruption that I'm worried about. I'm not worried about the trajectory of science. That's there, with or without us, and mostly without us. And I'm particularly worried about Pakistan. Because here, one financial meltdown created the unnamed president. COVID created all kind of disruption and nationalism and sub-regionalism in Europe. We are the nest for everything. We have financial meltdowns. We flirt with financial meltdowns every day. What happens once in a century in the West happens here every quarter. Every round of IMF is a financial meltdown for us. So what the West deals with once in 30 or 50 years, we deal with every IMF program, every World Bank grant. That's what happens to us. We were hit with COVID-19. You were all here. You know what happened. You know how many doses we got. You know how many people we were? 220 million. So we prayed to God. And that's what we are doing as of right now. We were hit with climate change. We have zero carbon footprint. Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen, has zero carbon footprint. Someone else consumed the climate for its development. But we are the fifth or sixth, and now probably the third most vulnerable country in the world because we are situated at the footsteps of the Himalayas. And as soon as the melting rate of these glaciers change, as it is, we're blown away. We're flooded away. Our agriculture is destroyed, our infrastructure is destroyed, and it becomes a numbers game. One person's death is death, 10 is also death, 1 million, some number, some abstract number, wiped away. So in the wake of these disruptions, potential disruptions, we have to build ourselves up. There are some recipes that we need to engage with. Some, I wouldn't call it the poison pill, but I would call it a bitter pill. We have to agree, in the wake of what is happening in the world, we have to agree what are the organizing principles that we are going to maintain in Pakistan, politically. Politics is going to be the answer of everything that I've laid out in front of you. And all of these things that come from the technocrats like myself, just laugh at them because they've not worked anywhere. Why would they work in Pakistan? Pakistan doesn't have a problem. Pakistan doesn't have a fundamental problem. Pakistan has the problem of the fundamentals. We haven't decided what are those three organizing principles around which we're going to build our nation, what is going to be our politics. So we have to decide on that to embrace this future that we haven't seen. We have to decide what kind of economy we are going to have. Are we going to continue to have this elite capture? And people tell me it's cliched. Freaking hell, it's cliched. Saudi Arabia gives its gas for $2 to its fertilizer and power plants. Qatar gives for $3. Bahrain gives for $4. And you know how much Pakistan gives it for? 70 cents and $1.34. This is the level and kind of elite capture that we have in this country. We're richer than Saudi Arabia, guys? Or Qatar? So unless this elite capture is taken care of, which is not cliched, it's real. It takes away opportunities from the millions and millions and millions of poor people of Pakistan by a handful of people who have the political wherewithal to take the gas at 70 cents or $1.30 or $1.90 has to stop. And the people of Pakistan have to be empowered to stop this elite capture. And we have to change our systems. As I said, there's no biotech without biology and chemistry. There's no nanotech without physics. There's no artificial intelligence without math. So what about the educational system? So what about the educational system? What about this talk about nano, bio, AI, CI, DI? These numbers, these letters don't mean jack in our world. So we must commit ourselves to changing this educational system. And socially, it has to be opportunity for all. And nothing else would work. Not a thing else other than this shall work. If it works, it would be anti-gravity. It's my favorite example. I would give it before winding up. There was a professor who was writing. I say this every time, I say this again. The chalk fell from his hand. He said, "Damn gravity." Then he bent down and he picked the chalk up and he looked at the class and he said, "But you know what? Gravity doesn't care." So my friend, my friends, ladies and gentlemen, gravity doesn't care. Every time you will let go of the chalk, it shall fall. The destiny is ours to lose or to win. The choice is ours. And I would say, we know what the positive disruptions are going to be, what is on the horizon. We know what all negative can happen. Let's take charge of our own destination and make a choice, the choice to win. And the choice is ours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Musadik, Malik. There's one thing about you that maybe not everybody in this room knows, and that is that you have attended all the 6 editions of the Future Summit and in person. So I think that's a record that nobody else has achieved. And we're looking forward to all future summits, having you here. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, as is customary, we'll be presenting souvenirs to the worthy speakers of this panel. Before I invite the guest who will be presenting them, I'd like to invite Asfar on the stage, please. I'd also like to invite Usman. Please join us. And to give the souvenirs away, I'd like to invite Wafa Makhlouf, Executive Director, Seed Tunisia. Please join us. Do we have the souvenirs ready, girls? Thank you. Okay, so all right, so first of all, James, I'd like to request you to please receive a small token of our appreciation. This is a book which is purely on Pakistan. It's a pictorial representation of the Indus, the mighty Indus flowing across Pakistan. I hope that you enjoy reading through it. Sir Sohail Aman. Michael. I think we can clap a little louder. I can only see a couple of people clapping. Thank you, Fareed Bhai. And I think Dr. Musadik will have quite a collection of our books, having come to all our future summits. Please, Dr. Saab. So let's have the last group photo of the Future Summit 6th edition. Uneza, if you could please join us. And I'll also ask myself to join.
May I kindly request Asfar SN to kindly give out these souvenirs to our moderators also. Rabia, kindly receive your souvenir, please. Shaha, can we please have you on stage?
So they say a woman's work is never done, neither is a moderator's. So this is obviously a very, very important part. Before I ask all of you to go out for your cup of tea, it is important to deliver heartfelt gratitude to so many different sets of people. We'll start with all our partners and sponsors. So Engro Corporation and Ghias, who is actually the co-founder. He couldn't be here because of some unavoidable commitments, but thank you Ghias and thank you Engro Corporation. HBL, our platinum partner, Unity Foods, the headline sponsor, and all the other sponsors who are mentioned over here, SAP, K Electric, Faisal Bank, PTCL Group, Al Mizan, Abacus Consulting Technology, NBP Funds, Hilton Pharma, S&P Global, Institute of Business Management, OICCI, ACCA, VCAST, and Corporate Pakistan Group. This event and events like these are never complete and never possible without your support. So thank you very much, all our sponsors and partners. Obviously, a summit is not complete without its speakers, and moving a step forward, a summit is actually as good as the quality of its speakers and panelists. So a shout out to our speakers, 20 plus international, 35 from all over the country. Thank you for giving Pakistan and Karachi this honor. A big round of applause for all our speakers. A bigger round of applause, please. Better clapping. Okay, so I'd like to mention over here that we have had a number of trends as well. I've been telling you that hashtag the Future Summit has been trending, and actually it's been trending all day today despite a lot of negative news that's been coming. So that just goes to show that we are optimists as a nation, and positive developments do actually get traction and they do resonate. So that was something that I wanted to share with you. Other than that, a few of our speakers have also been trending. Neil Ford has been trending. Vasiliza has been trending. Mohammad Aurangzeb, Jimmy Wynn, Usman Yusuf. All of you, I don't know what you've been doing, but you've made a mark on Twitter. So congratulations. Other than that, we've had Catalonia trending. 6th edition, prepare for disruption, CEOs, president and CEO. So with the hashtag petrol and diesel prices, we've also had all these positive hashtags. So well done, everybody. So one category that is important to thank is all of you, our audience. Can you please clap for yourselves? Louder, louder. Okay, so now it's important to thank a few teams that have made this event as spectacular as it has been. There have been a number of groups of people, a number of organizations that have made this event so special. We have our sound team led by Saqib. So a big shout out to Saqib, who's always supported us. I don't think I've ever seen a Nutshell event without Saqib and his team. Very well done. Also, Sajid Hanif isn't here. All this fabrication is his work, so thank you very much. Movenpick Hotel, Thank you for the amazing venue, the great food, and the coffee and the tea, a constant supply that's been coming to Shaha and myself and some of our speakers in between. Thank you very much. I'd also like to thank our volunteers. I think we need to clap for our amazing volunteers. They've done a very, very good job. They've been on their feet, and they've been smiling all along. And okay. So another entity that is important that I have to thank is, of course, the Nutshell team. I can't take everybody's names because we are a group of almost 50 people, so it'll be keeping you away from your cup of tea if I start taking those names. But everybody has been absolutely amazing. They've been on their toes, and they're still smiling. So thank you very much, Nutshell team. And a special thanks to, I don't know if he's here anymore, Dr. Mirza Ikhtiar Beg. He's been absolutely amazing with his big open heart and his generosity. He's supported us all along. So even though he's not, where is he? Okay, so thank you very much, Ishtiaq Saab and Ikhtiar Saab. I'm sure you'll pass on our gratitude to your very kind brother. All right, so I think I'm done. If I've missed out somebody, please do remind me. But I think we've now come to the end of yet another amazing year. I hope that our international speakers particularly will take back very nice, positive, pleasant memories, not only of our country, but of our people. There have been a few speakers who've never visited Pakistan before. So for all of you, I would request you to please be ambassadors of Pakistan and remember that we are an optimistic, positive, and committed nation.
Thank you. We started the Future Summit in the month of November, actually. But last time, because of some political rallies and some law and order situation, we postponed this summit, and now we are hosting in February. But this year, we want to again host this summit in November. So the new dates of the Future Summit, the 7th edition, are November 15, 16, the same hotel, Movenpick Floor Hotel, first floor. November 15, 16, please block your diaries. And inshallah ta'ala, in the 7th edition, we will engage more and more international speakers, and we will make this much bigger in comparison with the 6th edition. Because before the COVID, we were hosting much bigger summit with 1,000 persons, with over 40 international speakers. But after COVID, we were restricted to a number of 10, 15 international speakers. This time we are hosting 20 speakers, and next year we will do much bigger in every term, and we will expand the activities beyond Movenpick Hotel also, some sideline activities with the Future Summit. So I'm again grateful to all of you. I'm especially grateful to all my international speakers who are here from different parts of the world. I'm grateful to them for their trust on Pakistan, and I hope that they will visit Pakistan again and again. Rabi already mentioned about our partners, our Nutshell team, actually the best team in Pakistan. So actually we started Nutshell Communications. This is still in the formation phase, but we are a group of 50 persons now. And trust me that this is a beautiful journey. This is Pakistan's first full spectrum communication company, and we are working beyond borders also. And inshallah ta'ala, in the next 2 to 3 years, this will be a Pakistani brand working in Middle East and Central Asia. This is our plan in the next 3 countries. I'm especially grateful to my very dear brothers of sound system and all the audiovisuals, Saqib and his brothers. Their mother was hospitalized actually. They are like my brothers. They are always helpful with us. They are always with us. And whenever we are hosting any big international summit in Islamabad, they are the persons who always visited Islamabad and manage our events. Despite the hospitalization of their mother, they are here to facilitate us. And please, big claps for this. Shows the commitment, and this shows their honesty. I'm also very grateful to my friends of ACCA. Sajid, please rise. Asad is here. Where is Asad? So ACCA is our actually strategic partner, knowledge partner since last many years, and we are collaborating again and again. And you know, this is a very natural synergy between both organizations, and their global leadership is also very cooperative and supportive with us. So with this note, I'm again, I was asking my friend Musadik Malik, the next time I will host you in the inaugural session. I always hosted him in the Future Summit in the closing session. So next time we will host him in the inaugural session. This is my commitment, inshallah. If both of us will be alive, we will be here. So Pakistan is our country. Pakistan is a land of opportunities. We all are aware about this fact. This is up to us. This is not up to any specific government or any specific stakeholder. This is collective responsibility, as I mentioned yesterday in my welcome address. So it's up to us to build this country prosperous and one of the best country to live in, and the best country for the foreign direct investment, which is actually my biggest pain point, foreign direct investment. So for investors, I want to see this country more secure country for their investments. Pakistan, Zindabad, please enjoy tea, and next year, this year on November 15, 16, we will meet again. Thank you.